for the 1 minute answers. And I'll start the 30 minutes when I completed asking the first question. And I also want the delegates to know that the first question I'm going to ask is a question that is mandated by the rules of the DFL party. And candidates are allowed a one-word answer, yes or no. And this question is going to go first to Elliott Payne, followed by Ryan Strahan. And the question is, will you suspend your campaign if someone other than you is endorsed by this convention? Yes or no?
Yes.
No. Okay. Can I please ask, in the interest of time, we'll have more questions and ask if people refrain from applauding answers, so can we please have quiet to have a maximum number of questions asked. This question goes first to Ryan. How long have you been a Ward 1 resident?
Since 2007. And yes, I believe, which is longer than my home. I love Ward 1. It's a fantastic place to live. And I know there's been a lot of questions about addresses. I live here, grow here, want to stay here. I sometimes feel my opponent is far more interested in the address in St. Paul or DC. I do wish it was on those things. But yes, this is my home, this is where I live.
All right. And Elliott, how long have you been a Ward 1 resident?
I rented my first apartment in 2003, and then I went back to campus, and then I moved in with my girlfriend, now wife, in 2005, and I've been continuously living in Ward 1 since 2005.
All right. Again, please refrain so we can have a maximum number of questions. This goes first to Elliott. Do you have any plans to improve the walkability and public transit for our neighborhoods and city overall?
Yes, and we're already seeing some of those improvements getting delivered right now as we speak, with Lowry Avenue getting reconstructed. We also have University Avenue and Central Avenue also getting reconstructed. Those are both state roads, but we have a really strong say in how that feedback comes into play, and I'm always going to be a champion of like pedestrian facilities, multimodal transportation. And what was the second half of the question?
I'll read the whole question again. Do you have any plans to improve the walkability and public transit for our neighborhoods and city overall?
And as well for public transit. So I've been advocating to bring BRT on Lowry because we do know that we have more connections going to downtown than east-west, and I want to make sure that we're connecting not just east-west, but across the river. Northeast and north side should be a part of a shared community, and I'm proud to advocate for that extension of BRT.
All right. Brian, same question. Do you have any plans to improve the walkability and public transit for our neighborhoods and the city overall?
Yes, I have focused on a whole street design, which provides person-level streets for all of our local businesses and brings in not just transit, walkability, but also provides for driving and buffering. I think not only do we have these major projects coming through, and they are state, we do need the strongest of advocacy for these. We cannot allow the state or county to roll over us. We need to make sure that these are focused on people-centric to bring in the walkability for all of our local businesses and our neighborhoods.
All right, this question goes first to Brian. Will you support the bill Senator Clark is working on to cut state funding from law enforcement in Minnesota that work with ICE?
I would have to look more into that. I feel ICE is more than overfunded and needs none of our support.
And same question to Elliott. Will you support the bill Senator Clark is working on to cut state funding from law enforcement in Minnesota that work with ICE?
Yes, and not only that, but we have a separation ordinance in the city of Minneapolis. Local government does not enforce federal law. State government shouldn't be enforcing federal law either.
All right, this question goes first to Elliott. Do you believe every police precinct should have a building within its boundaries?
Yes, and I think we should be leveraging some of the innovations like the Lake Street Safety Center, which are not a police precinct, but a place where you can get safety services within the community.
Same question. Do you believe every police precinct should have a building within its boundaries?
Yes. I think it's also time that we move forward with the Democracy Center, that we also make sure that first responders have all the support that they need, be that from a centralized location or out in the community.
This goes first to Brian. How do you, if you do, plan on implementing boots on the ground, protecting against the Trump administration's efforts to kidnap our friends and neighbors?
Not only, not just as a city council member, as a citizen, I am concerned. And I look we're all unacceptable to stop behavior. I will be the first one to start to stop Council to be out there for any of our neighbors who are taking. This is disgusting. There needs to. Sorry, I think we're all upset about this, especially when we're seeing people in masks. They don't present the badge. They have no awards. I would happily go out arm in arm with Elliott, Payne, and every single one of you to make sure none of our citizens, none of our neighbors are taken away unjustly. They are protected.
Same question. How do you, if you do, plan on implementing boots on the ground protection against the Trump administration's efforts to kidnap our friends and neighbors?
One of the more tangible things that I've done as city council is pass a budget that included funding for free user and legal services. But if we need to go beyond what the formal role of the city is and engage our community, that's why I brought all of the neighborhood associations together to do a know your rights training and offer resources so that we can start distributing know your rights information across our community at the grassroots level. Also bringing know your rights training into the neighborhood association meetings. I think that's one of the key things is making sure that we're enforcing our separation ordinance so that we're not doing the work of ICE on their behalf, but also making sure that all of our neighbors know their rights and we're ready to have rapid response, including myself. I will go to, if you see a raid, call or text me. Every one of you have my cell phone number. It's been demonstrated that when elected officials show up, ICE will tend to back down, and you have to put your body on the line in these moments.
This next question, I'm going to try to state it correctly, but I'm not familiar with the Minneapolis budget policy, so bear with me if I get the details wrong. Do you support stopping the city capture district that was to support the trolleys and put it back in the general fund to reduce property taxes? And this goes to Elliott first.
I think this is the zombie tip district for the trolley system, and I would say that a lot has changed since that originally passed, including a local option sales tax for transportation. I think we need a much more comprehensive transportation plan when it comes to connected network. I don't know that trolley system meets the needs of today, and I would certainly consider that.
Same question. Do you support stopping the city capture district that was to support the trolleys and put it back in the general fund to reduce property taxes?
I support more accessible transit for everyone. My goal is to make sure that when you walk out the door, you have an option other than the car.
This card has two questions, so I'm going to ask the first one. This goes first to Brian. What is your position on holding police accountable with just cause, collective bargaining, and arbitration?
I think one of the best routes to move forward with holding the police accountable is to get a professional liability. Accountability is of the utmost importance. They are trying to take away the consent decree yet again. I believe that we need to make sure the police are held to what they've already agreed to, so that they will continue.
Same question. What is your position on holding police accountable with just cause, collective bargaining, and arbitration?
So the biggest lie that you've been told about policing in America is the power of the police union. And that lie is grounded in the fact that we have had elected leaders that are unwilling to hold police accountable and issue discipline. And one of the things that I'm hoping that we will achieve with the new consent decrees, plural, only in the nation, is we will have rigorous policy, rigorous training, and rigorous accountability. And we will do that accountability consistently so that when we do need a discipline officer, we're doing it in a way that passes the 7 tests of just cause, and that discipline sticks. That's what we do right now.
Great. Next question goes to Elliott first. Do you believe the city council should follow city procedures regarding George Floyd Square?
So, George Floyd Square is a place of tremendous significance, not just to me as a black man in Minneapolis, but for our entire country. And so as we talk about city procedures, the thing that is subtext to that question is that we actually have a new state law that was passed last year that permits the ability to do pedestrian plaza. And I believe that it is appropriate to memorialize the place where George Floyd was murdered by having a George Floyd Memorial Square and using that state law to be able to deliver that. We need to combine that with deep, meaningful, transformative investments in that corridor. The corridor has been disinvested in long before the murder of George Floyd. This can be a locus of transformation for our city, and I'm going to need to get us there.
Same question. Do you believe the city council should follow city procedures regarding George Floyd Square?
I think that it is time that we move forward with George Floyd Square, will bring everybody together at this table, not using it as a political wedge issue. This is an important center for our city, for healing, moving forward. We need to make sure the plans are moving forward, not in a divisive way.
Next question goes to Brian first. Do you believe city contracting policy should be followed for granting city taxpayer dollars?
Yes.
Same question. Do you believe city contracting policy should be followed for granting city taxpayer dollars?
We actually need more rigorous contracting policy. That's demonstrated by the lack of oversight and accountability within our neighborhood safety department. Those city leaders were following the city policy, and we got the outcomes that we got from a lot of those dollars that we don't know where they went. And so we actually need a lot more rigor and discipline when it comes to how we do contracting in the city so that we can have our transparency and accountability for every dollar that goes out the door.
This question goes first to Elliott. What renter protections will you work to implement if elected?
So one of the renter protections we really have already passing is an extension of the 30-day free eviction notice. There are rental assistance dollars available, but you can only get access to them on average in 28 days. It's not a good protection if it doesn't count. We also need to look at rent stabilization. That's a policy that overwhelmingly passed across the city, and it's time that we do the due diligence to get that policy right. And I think that renter protection is part of a comprehensive housing policy that also needs to include building new units.
Same question. What renter protections will you work to implement if elected?
Better renter protection, more units, more options for that. More outlets to building, more units, more units, more units. That's it. That's the only way to bring it down. We have a beautiful neighborhoods here in the Northeast, in South Boardwalk that are already set up to provide more units for everyone on an organic growth level. We need to move forward with that. That is the best way to provide everybody with dignity and housing to live.
Next question first goes to Brian. If you become council member, will you actively work with the mayor or be an advocate?
I plan on working with everybody. That is the most important thing, especially from a legislative body. To start from a point of not, it just gets us nowhere. I believe politics is done best when you hold your opponent in the lowest of the highest regards.
Same question. If you become council member, will you actively work with the mayor or be an advocate?
As council president, I work with the mayor every day. And I reach out to him, and in fact, we are hosting a Housing First policy session where I personally called to invite him to provide opening remarks, because I think that problems like homelessness are so intractable. We cannot have conflict within the city, but between the city and the county. So the purpose of that is not only bring the mayor to the table, but also the county and other community providers to solve this challenge.
This question goes first to Elliott. Can you give specific examples of community-based public safety that you champion as a councilman?
So actually, before I was a council member, I was helping to develop the behavioral crisis response. And the reason I ran for city council in the first place is because George Floyd was murdered, and we were on the front cover of the New York Times for the defund the police movement. We were working on that work long before we were on the front page of the New York Times. It was a data-driven approach based on 911 calls for service and the workload of our police department. It's the proudest thing I've ever done is to see PCR come to fruition, and I'm so proud to see that we've expanded it, moved it underneath the fire department, so now we can start thinking about even more first responsibility, more appropriate for our city.
Same question. Can you give specific examples of community-based public safety that you champion as a councilman?
I am championing it as a council member, but I have a long history of making sure everybody is treated with dignity and respect. My mother, who is a site nurse for the HCMC Crisis Center for over 30 years, is in the audience. My mom. And we've had many discussions about how we need more beds, more resources for all of these. We cannot just have single units or single forms to treat a diverse safety issues that deal with everything from crime to mental health to drugs. We need more support from everybody across the city that knows how to do these.
The next question goes first to Brian. How will you fight for reproductive justice in the scope of this role?
As proud builder of a woman's right to choose, having a wife and 2 daughters. If there are any specific issues that are being tried to take away, I'm glad to say that I'm proud to say that in Minnesota that is asking for reproductive rights, especially in the surrounding areas. Not on my watch.
Same question. How will you fight for reproductive justice in the scope of this role?
It's not enough for Minnesota to be a beacon of choice. We need to be able to get access. And one of the things that I think we can do as a local government is fund abortion access funds, so that when people don't live in Minnesota and don't have the type of access that Minnesota residents have, they can still make it here. It is extremely hard to get an abortion. Even in states where it's legal, there's still restrictions here in Minnesota. But if we can at least make it so that women who are seeking abortion, people who are seeking abortion from our surrounding region or across the country can get access here, I think that's going to go a long way, and that's something that we can do from local government.
This question goes first to Elliott. What will you cut from the budget to ensure taxes don't rise as a result of downtown commercial tax law?
Well, one big thing that actually already comes from the budget was
So did you commit voter fraud, or are you lying right now?
Like
which one is it?
So we already have a lot of money in reserve for this big enterprise resource planning
It turns out
project.
we can look you up in van, my guy.
Out of the budget this last cycle, over the property tax credit,
Yeah. Do the people around him just not know that? That we can just look and see? Do they not understand how van works? Like,
And so when you cut that budget, they still want to come to the table and work with us, and so we're actually still getting that project moving forward. And so
I mean, he
the
has-
idea is to look at this and look at the
Yeah.
rigor, and the rigor that we
But,
bring
oh,
is
you think that they're not?
meaning that departments
I mean,
bring
that's
business
naive.
plans to us so that they're actually making a case for every
Also, is he going to just personally fund bus lots? Like,
as a result of downtown commercial tax law.
do you not know that that's like a Met Council thing? Like, what the fuck? So absurd. I feel bad for him. I genuinely feel bad for him.
Bring that back. You can look at this as a real opportunity in most COVID world to make that a
I just don't know who put him up to this, but what, like, they did not have his best interests at heart. Guess he just
not set up rent issues, not arguing that for thing. This needs to get done. There are no cuts that are going to come in and
Shout out to
and
Rachel.
fill in that gap. There will be cuts in everybody else's property tax. We need to get downtown going, period.
This question goes first to Brian. What will you do to protect the dignity and rights of unsheltered neighbors who reside in encampments within our city?
As I have said, more units, more units, more units. We need to make sure that mental health facilities are fully funded. We need to make sure that we have outreach to all of these people. They need the respect and dignity. This is the most important thing about this. We do that not with slogans, not with headlines, but by making units, making beds, hiring professionals that can facilitate the movement of these people into the housing and the safe spaces that they need for that to happen.
Same question. What will you do to protect the dignity and rights of unsheltered neighbors who reside in encampments within our city?
So I mentioned this in an earlier answer, but I'm bringing together a policy roundtable to talk about housing first. And our policy research team has looked across other jurisdictions who are doing this well. And the number one theme is tight coordination between city and county government, something that we're lacking right now. And we need to look at this from a short, medium, and long-term perspective. Short term, we need safe outdoor spaces. When living outdoors is your best option, that says a lot about the failure of our system, but we need to make that option safe and controlled so that you can have, so that outreach workers can find their clients and get them into the transit and more permanent housing. Medium term, we need to have a south side tiny home village, like a Vivo village. That's been a tremendously successful model. And long term, I passed a budget amendment to study social housing so that we can have local ownership and control of the housing market, build more units, and bring our overall cost of housing down.
I'm going to preface this question by noting that under the rules, I am only allowed to read the question and not the introductory language. So if you wrote this question, that's why I'm only reading the actual question. This goes first to Elliott. What protections do you intend to support and create for our city's workers and labor parties?
So the city has 27 bargaining units. We're one of the most unionized workforces in the city. But even as a strong labor work environment, there's not always a healthy relationship between labor and management. One of the things that I do is I build a direct connection with labor so that we can hear about the issues that are impacting them and bring those to management. Other workers in our city don't have that type of protection. So that's why I supported the Labor Standards Board so that we can have sectoral level protections for the workforce, whether you're represented by a union or you're not. And so I think the Labor Standards Board is one of the most effective ways that we can deliver labor protections, whether you are represented or not.
Same question. What protections do you intend to support and create for our city's workers and labor parties?
We need to make sure that there is no wage theft in the city, period, end. That is the biggest crime that happens against our city and our nation. We have to have a strong legislative body that's prepared to stand up for all labor and prevent any exploitation of any workers. We need to strengthen unions by getting more union members. I plan on coming to make sure that they can organize across all labor.
This question goes first to Brian. How are you enacting policies to support those displaced and disadvantaged by decades of racist policies?
More units. Constantly, we need more housing. We need more achievable housing for everybody. And this is one of the biggest issues that we face now. We can pass resolutions, we can pass laws, we can do all that. Without housing, it's meaningless, nothing backwards.
Same question. How are you enacting policies to support those displaced and disadvantaged by decades of racist policies?
So I grew up in Milwaukee, which is known to be one of the most segregated cities in the country. And when you look at the outcome of redlining and other racist policies, there are lasting effects that go on for generations. And so the first thing you have to do is name that those effects still exist and persist here today. And so you have to do intentional policy and investment, dollars, money, to bring equity into this scenario. And oftentimes there's a lot of pushback for that, because if you have privilege, equity feels like they're losing something, and there's always a political blowback, but we need to have the courage to fight against that blowback, make direct investments in our community, and help bring more home ownership opportunity or other direct investments into the communities that have been most directly affected by this toxic racist history past.
This question goes first to Elliott. Why is working together with all department heads important?
Working with department heads is important because under the new government structure, we don't have the direct authority to direct anything that happens in our city from day-to-day operations. That happens from the department heads. And so you can't do anything formally beyond passing a budget to shape the agenda of the department. So oftentimes when I'm doing constituent services to help you, it's because I have good relationships with department heads. They hear me out and they're able to follow up on those issues. And if I don't have those relationships with those department heads, you can actually see things slip through the cracks.
Same question. Why is working together with all department heads important?
That is this level of government. That is one of the most important things. As your city council member, you call me, I know where to send your question, I know where to find the people that fix this problem. Working relationships is the most important thing, especially at this level of government. I vow to make sure I have a continuing working relationship with every department head, so that there are formal and informal ways to make sure all of the issues of Ward 1 are addressed.
This question goes first to Brian. What are your thoughts on transparency in government? Do you have any conflicts of interest to declare?
Transparency in government is the best form to prevent corruption. I have no conflicts to declare. And if one was brought to me or if I found one, I would open it to daylight as soon as possible.
Same question. What are your thoughts on transparency in government? Do you have any conflicts of interest to declare?
Sometimes the best of disinfectant transparency is a really important part of my governing principles. I have no conflicts to disclose here. I'm a current city council member. This is a super full-time job. I'm doing this for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't have enough time to be conflicted doing other work. So, yeah, and I'm also working to build out our performance management system. That's what I was doing before I ran for office. I was on the performance management innovation team. And we were building out a comprehensive system of bringing more transparency to the public. I need that as a legislator right now. I don't have transparency from this administration. As an elected official, how are you supposed to have transparency? Through my oversight role, I am bringing that transparency and forcing our administration to bring things like business plans and asking us to roll over their budgets by $42 million at a time.
And this will likely be our last question. This goes first to Elliott. Why is the city council so controversial in your opinion?
So I'm the first black man to be president of city council. We have one of the most diverse city councils in our city's history, possibly in the country. My colleague Jason Chavez is over there, represents the 9th Ward. Our mere existence is controversial to some people. Our mere existence is controversial to some people. Holding power is controversial to some people. And that is reflected in how our media reports the day-to-day goings-on at City Hall. We get along quite well in City Hall. I actually have a decent relationship with the mayor. We disagree fundamentally on a number of things, but I don't have a bad relationship with them. But the controversy is stirred up because we actually center the voices of marginalized people, people who haven't had access or power in the past. The simple fact that they have access to power is something that the people who do have power typically, they see that as a controversy.
And same question, why is the city council so controversial in your opinion?
Because it's not working on the issues of Minneapolis. Period end. We need to reinvigorate downtown. We need more housing. We need more people-centered transit, not international resolution. This is just wedging issues that divide us and don't bring us together. These are many of these issues I can agree with you on, our question. This is not the venue. This is why people are unhappy with the council. They have real issues in Minneapolis and they are not being addressed.
Q&A session. Can we give a round of applause to both candidates? This is a really hard thing to do. I'm going to share that I'm a former Duluth City Councilor, so I know how hard it is to do this. And it speaks well of our DFL candidates that they are this open and this willing to engage with the rank and file of this party. So again, thank you to both candidates. I'm going to share with you what we're going to be doing right now. Just so you know, that at 1:11, which is about just under 10 minutes, we have a required prayer break, which lasts 15 minutes. So the prayer break will run from 1:11 to 1:26. The first item of business after the prayer break is